So it's a great pleasure for me to introduce the very first of our OAS Speaks lectures here from Sydney, and to introduce you to the Hawaii Pacific University Emeritus Professor of Art History, Jerome Feldman. He's been working, he tells me, at Hawaii University for 41 years now, and I first came across his work as the author in the chapter Patterns That Connect in the new book Sea Art, Southeast Asian Art. I think patterns that connect are going to be likely quite an important theme in what we're about to hear. So please welcome Jerome Feldman on his talk, which is entitled Consultations in Heaven, Symbolism of Council Houses in Nias and Samoa. Jerome.
Oh, thank you for that introduction. I'll get started with my PowerPoint here. This talk is about council houses, and actually it's a topic that really needs more study across the whole Pacific or Oceanic area. As it turns out, the very first place that I did fieldwork was in Samoa, and that was in 1969. And the thing that impressed me most was the council house that I saw there. And then later in 1974, I did my major PhD work on the island of Nias, actually in the Indian Ocean. And one of the things that impressed me were similarities that I saw between these two cultures and the kinds of arts and things that they did. Today, I'm going to concentrate on the council house, but there are other things that relate as well. But just to give you an idea of where we're talking about, Nias Island is over here. Samoa is over here. And I don't think people in Samoa know about Nias Island, and probably very few people in Nias have ever heard of Samoa as well. Interesting enough, coming from Coney Island, the people in Nias knew where Coney Island was. The island of Nias is a fairly large island in the Indian Ocean, culturally divided roughly into three culture areas: the north, central, and south, following roughly these lines. And the place that we're going to look at is a very large village down here called Bawömataluo, which means Sun Mountain. This is a satellite photograph of the village, a fairly recent 2016 photograph. And it's rather interesting because being there in 1974, we didn't have the benefit of a satellite photograph. We didn't have the benefit of any drones or anything. So we paced out the village, at least my wife paced out the village by foot. And then we made a rough diagram, and then I completed the drawing. And it looks quite similar to what we can see now with the satellite. There are areas that have expanded since that we could see in the other photograph. Basically, this was the village. There was a little bit of habitation over here, none over here at all, none in here. There are three major entranceways to the village, these stairways. The villages in South Nias, as typical of a tribal Southeast Asia, are up on the tops of mountains. But yet the connection to the sea is mostly symbolic. They really don't go near the sea as much as possible, which is kind of strange for an island people. There's a great stone stairway right here that I'll show you in a moment. And in the middle of the village is the navel stone, which has an image of the sun on it. And Ewali is the heavens, another word for heavens. So the sun is in the middle of the heavens. And basically, what's going on here is a reification within the society. That is, they tend to produce an instance of creation itself, which is symbolized in the cosmos. So you can see in the layout of the village, there are elements relating to the sky, and the word for village itself is Banua, which means heaven. This is the stairway going up to the village, and as you enter, you notice you see the sky, and Banua means heaven and village, so in a way, it's set up that way. And by the way, there are cognates for this going across the Pacific. Vanua means land, Banua, Honua in Hawaiian, place where humans live, like a portion of the cosmos where humans live. This is the center of the village, and you can see an enormous chief's house that's there, that's 20 meters high. There are about 115 big pillars underneath that hold it up. Whoops, that shouldn't have gone. And it too is a cosmic structure. And basically what we see is that the symbolism of the village, the symbolism of the chief's house, the symbolism of people's costumes, all are in a way fractile representations of the whole cosmos. The degree to which they represent a complete cosmic pattern has to do with the, first of all, the class of the person, the upper class, the si'ulu, which literally means that which is up, are people who are capable of having complete symbols of the cosmos. And then below that, you get partial representations of the cosmos that you're allowed to get to. On the left in this screen is the subject of this talk, and that is this building right here. And you notice it looks quite different from the others. It's called the Bale, and it's a council house. By the way, it's a cognate to this word is Balai, which is the parliament in Jakarta that is used. So it's an idea of a council house where people hash out their arguments and plan things and do all of that. Within the context of the village, a council committee can be held in many different places, depending upon the appropriateness of what the council is all about. But the ones that contact the ancestors directly and for the purpose of making that contact are the ones that would be held in the Bali in the past. And so its structure is very interesting. And you can probably tell it's an open building, so people can hear the consultations that are going in there. And the inside here, it's structured in a very interesting way. The entrance to the Bali is by stone post like this. You can see this child on here. This photograph comes from about 1914, 1915. And by having the entrance made that way, it means that only men can enter it. In Nias custom, at least in the old times, women were not allowed in here. However, they could listen from the outside, and they did. And I was told that they watch very carefully what's said, and if the men say things they don't agree with, they'll hear from them. So it does incorporate them. This is a photograph from 1974 showing the stone, one of these 4 stone entranceways. It's laid out inside in a very interesting way. There are 4 gigantic pillars over here that are called osale, which means sacred. So this is a sacred part of the structure. And next to each of those 4 pillars are stone seats. Dado means stone, seat. So these are stone seats. And the numbers here correspond to the rank of the person who sits at those seats. So this would be the ruler himself. And these are all si'ulu here. These are all the upper class. And then his next ranking further down over here. The other pillars you can see are also ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are for the representatives of the Sato or the commoner class. And the main person is called the Si'ila. He's the wise man, the person who knows the customs, the adat for the village, and also participates in the conference itself. Along the side of the building are benches where other participants will sit, and mostly these are people who will not take part in the conversations, but will respond after each sentence or phrase is made by the speaker with either an affirmation or a negative sound. And one of the characteristics of the orahu, which is what they call the oratory, is that you can hear the sound of these people on the benches over here. And mostly you would hear ya, which means yes, it's true. Or they can say in response. Now the speaker chooses his respondent, but still they can make the sound, which would cause the negotiation to break down until they figure out what's wrong here. There's some problem in what's being said. So that's the form of the oratory. In the front of the ballet, up here, along the village street, there's a village street going this way, and then another one here. Along the front is a skull rack, this part over here, where headhunted skulls were put, dedicated to the god of the upper world, Loalani. And at the back is another skull rock dedicated to the god of the underworld, La Toridano. And you can see that there is Claude Lévi-Strauss would be very happy here with this. It's a structuralist society where duality is an essential part of the design of culture, what they consider to be cultured. So there's present at every official oratory would be the Si'ulu, the Sato, the Si'ila, and in this case, the duality is expressed in centrality. So in other words, in the middle here is the upper class, the commoner class is on the periphery. Now, interestingly enough, the head Si'ila gets a lot of respect, and his post is called the beginning of heaven, Boro Banua. And that's a really special thing. So he is directly attached to the heavens. There is no oratory without representation of both classes in it. So it's a little bit, if you think of the British Parliament, the House of Lords and the Commoners, that has to be here. So that's part of the indigenous structure. This is not the same ballet. This is one that's now disappeared, but it's an old photograph of one in Hili Chihono. Interestingly enough, this photograph was taken by a man named Elio Modigliani, who was an Italian geographer who came to Nias in the 1880s, late 1880s, and took photographs, and also was a very good observer of the society. But you can see these heads here. The heads come from the different districts of Nias. Remember, I showed the map with 3 different districts. You cannot take the head, first of all, of anybody you're related to or anybody that anybody in the village is related to. Now, that means sort of immediate relationship. Actually, all the Niasans are related, but you would take this from a different district. And in particular in Bawömataluo, they would take it from the Aramo district in central Nias. It didn't matter who you got. So the headhunter was really a hunter. It just counts, every person is equal, they count as one. And what's important is the number of heads that are taken. The heads could be displayed like this, or some of them might be ornamented like that. The term is binu for a head-hunted head. In fact, the chief's house has so many heads that they call it, one of its names is Omo Nifo Binu, meaning the house with heads. And there are lots of heads, especially at the top, dedicated to Loalani, the god of the upper world, and La Toridano under the pillars. None of them are still there, except the ones under the pillars, because they can't remove those. Those were put in when the house was built. Coming back to the Bale, you can see the osali, which are these 4 pillars here. One is out of sight. And the picture is low contrast, unfortunately, but I'll show you what this looks like. This is the main ruler's seat. And these are the benches for the respondents. There's the second ruler's seat. The only ornamentation in the Bale are these forms. I'll show you what they look like. They're coiled ferns called Niawoli. And the coiled fern is interesting. If you've ever observed ferns, the whole leaf has a distinct shape. Then each part of the leaf has a distinct shape that's like the whole leaf. And then each leaf has that shape again. And I think they see this as a kind of fractal representation. In other words, each part is a miniature of the whole. So that's a very prominent motif, are these coiled ferns. This is the Tuha is the title for the ruler. It's actually related to the Indonesian word Tuhan, meaning Lord or the God. Daro Daro Tuha. So this is a seat for the ruler. You can see it's very finely carved, polished, all of that. His post, the seat, by the way, is over here in this not so clear photograph. But you notice this cut over here. This is for the attachment of a rather crude forked image, which is a protective image, which is referred to as a tendro or support. In other words, it's a support for the back of the ruler who leans against this pillar. This is the one for the head of the commoner class, the Boro Benua, the beginning of heaven. Si'ila, number 1, Si'ila, the wise man from that class. He's also called Fodrahi, and Fodrahi is also the word for a drum, a kind of drum that is played by a priest or priestess when making connection to the gods. So it's interesting, it's clear that the ruler has the status, but there's something of a control of other matters is considered very, very important. This is the Fodrahi drum on the left, and an old photograph of a priest. It's called an ere, a priest playing the drum, and he will chant while he does that. And Nias music is very interesting. The chants do sound like other Austronesian tribal chants. And not too different from chants that you see in other Austronesian speaking places across the Pacific. There's the coiled fern motif. You can see this is kind of rotted. While I was there, they were planning on redoing the Bale, and I'll show you what it looks like now. It's quite different. So this is the original one. I came just in time to be able to still see that. Whoops. Let me just go back for a moment. Notice these stones over here. These have to be feasted for and brought out. They are stone ships. You can see the bow of the ship over here and over here. These are places to sit. They also have oratory in front of the Bale. I'll show you some photographs of that. Around over here, there is a stone right here where it's located. They take out that little brick in there, and there they place an image called the Famalua, which is a protective image in front of the Bale. And in this old photograph, you can see it. It has a human face, no arms, no legs, but a penis, and big forks on the top, called daha. The person, whoops, I'm trying to get rid of the thing on the top, but anyway, the images would look like this. They're rather crude. These are the only ones I know that come from a Bale in South Nias, and it may well be from this one. So these are Tenro Famalua Baragosali, but placed in the Osali in this case. So these were from the interior of the Bale. At the front of the Bale is a stone which is for ceremonial division of gold. They have a whole system of scales and weights and standardized measures, and they divide up gold. So when they're having a feast, one of the feasts for some of the highest ranking things is for the smithing of gold ornaments. And that requires lots of pigs, lots of food, and is a very expensive thing. Generally, the gold ornaments are associated with making your house, and they would be particularly heavy and big and elaborate for the owner of the chief's house. Other items of prestige you might find there are, for example, there was a cannon here. There are a couple of these in other South Nias villages. I'm not sure of the story behind this, but I believe that these were traded for, probably from Aceh in North Sumatra, and the items traded were slaves. There was a big slave trade in South Nias, which resulted in the extraordinary megaliths and houses and wealth that we see in South Nias, which is not comparable with the rest of the island. There was an enormous slave trade. It's very well documented, and they would get items, of course, in exchange. So this is one of those. I don't believe they ever fired this or used it. It's more of a prestige item. The front of the Bale is a place for all kinds of ceremonial activity. Here you can see a circle dance done by armored warriors, and it's a big tradition here. And while you notice over here is a stone that's 2 meters high. It's actually a stone wall 2 meters high. And these warriors were trained to jump over that. They would run down the village, hit this stone over here, and fly over feet first, like that. The purpose was that each South Nias village had traditionally a wall around it. There was an entrance door and wall around it, and the wall would be 2 meters roughly high. And if you could jump over that, you were into the village. Once they were in the village, then that was it. They just had to set fire to one house, and you can see how it would just burn all the way across. So that's an interesting thing. But notice the Bale is a bit separated. So should there be a fire, that would be okay. And the chief's house, as it was originally built, was in a space by itself, so that the fire that runs down all these houses would hopefully not spread to the chief's house. This is the oratory, or the orahu, for the last full chief of Bawömataluo village. And you can see here, this is his stone boat over here that has been dragged up the mountain. Now, I should tell you that dragging ourselves up that mountain is exhausting. Never mind bringing a huge, heavy stone like that. That stone now sits in front of the chief's house and is beautifully carved. The oratory that's going on here, and you can see these are pigs that have been slaughtered, and they're probably discussing the division of the pigs. Very, very important part of the oratory. And the people with umbrellas here would be the Sigulu, the upper class, and the head chief, and the Si'ila. They're both on this side. These are ceremonial respondents on this side. So they do not have any content in their speech. They're just affirmations or negative statements. These are the people who would discuss what's going on. Now here you can see a big gathering. There's the chief's house, and in front of the chief's house are large megaliths. And you can tell by the two umbrellas here that these are the Si'ulu over there. Probably over here are the Si'ila. So these are the rulers, and these are the commoners. And you can see that after the oratory, there would be, if it's a really formal thing, there would be a big warrior dance. This is a view of that area from the chief's house looking down. And there, by the way, is no first floor. The first floor is all pillars. And this is a drain that corresponds to the edge of the roof. And you can see these large megaliths here. And this is an oratory that's going on. This is a contemporary photograph of oratory in the same place. In fact, this is right here. This photograph taken by a curator at the museum in Copenhagen, Bente Wolf, who's been very cooperative and helpful to me. But you can see that's going on. Now, this person over here is very likely the highest ranking Si'ulu that they have. He doesn't have official, he has a ceremonial title or ceremonial rule here. There's an elected official who does the real politics. This man over here is likely the Si'ila. And you know, he has also golden ornaments, but not as elaborate as he would have. Now, these are contemporary ones. They're not as fine as the older ones. This is a photograph on the left that came from a family who is a descendant of the last ruler. And you can see it's a black and white photograph, and there's the gold ornaments have been done in a kind of gold paint. This was in the possession of his descendants, and they, in order to honor him, they wanted to make sure that you knew which parts were gold. It's just such a big thing there. Notice the golden mustachio, which is very, very unique, and the plant forms. Now, in this idea of things being small representations of the cosmos, notice there are birds here, and there are plant forms, and references to monsters on his sword handle. That's all part of the symbolism. This black necklace over here is something they still make. It's called a kalabubu, and in its original use, that would indicate that the person has taken a head. The other ones are all prestige items, and they're really gold. He's holding a cup, and he's seated here as an ancestor image would be. And you can see here, this is a South Nias ancestor image. It's not from this village, but it would be like it, and it makes a good comparison to the seated ruler over here. Seated is a special thing. If you're seated, then you are high ranking. Other people stand. And if you think about it, we have in European royalty, they have a throne. They sit. So seated is a special thing in many cultures. And the term here, adu zatua, jatua, actually, the image of an elder. Another one, adu sitataro, a seated image, indicating that it's actually very special. So you can see he's kind of like that. So that's up in the mountains. The ocean side looks like this. And I'm doing that to transfer us over to Samoa, and let's look at the council house that's there. I was able to go here in the 1960s before I ever had a passport, because this island, Tutuila, and these Manu Islands over here were, still are, American Samoa. So I didn't need a passport or anything. And I could just go and see what I see. And what I saw was quite interesting. First of all, nice place. It looks, the ocean is the ocean. But what really attracted my attention was the fale tele, which means the big house. And it's also a council house. Samoa didn't have chief's houses, but the chief would build this. So it would be his house, and he could put guests in there who could live. But its important function is that of a council house. And you can see that it consists of pillars around. And as is typical of Polynesia, it's as a stone foundation. And if you notice in Nias and all of tribal Southeast Asia, houses there are built on pillars. So that's a difference between those two areas. This house appears perfectly round, but it isn't. It has a straight section in the middle, and you can see the ridgepole is here, and it comes down like that. So it appears round, but it's got a straight section here and two rounded ends. What is very interesting, the pillars serve as backrests for the participants. And as in Nias, the place that you sit, the post that you get, and literally they say you inherit your post, and they mean a post, not just a position. So you sit where your rank is. So the house would look like this. This is a earlier photograph, and you can see people in there. And in this photo, you can see a little better what the middle section, the straight section, and the rounded sections over there. This is a photograph that shows the interior structure, how it's held up. What is very interesting here is that the middle section is all straight parts. You can see that straight here. And all of this structure over here, which a lot of people have presumed is holding up the roof, does not in fact do that. If you notice, there's no lashing over here. There's a little bit of a groove here, but that's not enough to hold it up. What this does is it gives the curve or the form to the roof, which is thatched. It all hangs from the ridgepole on the top. The house builders will put a special beam at the top, indicating that it was their particular house building clan that constructed it. So here is the ridgepole right there. You can see there are curved parts, which I'll talk about in a minute, but the straight parts are here. And the sequence of construction is really very key to understanding the symbolism of the house. And the key that I found to that symbolism was looking at this one, which was wrecked by a hurricane that came about a year or so before my visit. And you can see this one had one center pole. Most of them have two or three. This one has one that forks up, and there's the ridge pole. And you can see this thing stands by itself. And when I investigated, I could see that these were very loose and they didn't hold anything up. So the structure is really an umbrella structure. It involves a lot of feasting. And this photograph taken by Margaret Mead shows some of the feasting. And you can see here taro, but pigs are very important to that, part of that. And here you can see my photograph of a feast, in this case for the opening of a church, but it still had to include pig, soda crackers, but also taro would be brought out. The tufunga are the house builders, and the most prestigious of them belongs to the Sā clan. By the way, in Samoan, G is pronounced NG, just a peculiarity left over from missionaries. But so this would be Sā sacred Tangaloa. Tangaloa is the creator god. So this particular clan is very well connected and is considered very special. Notice, by the way, typical male tattooing here. I found the only book that I ever found that showed a house being built, a sequence of the house being built, was oddly published by Walt Disney Corporation. And it was if anybody wants, I have a reference to it. It was a book about Samoa, a picture book, the same sense that Walt Disney also did natural things, things about nature, documentaries like that. They also did culture. And this comes from the 1950s. And you can see the house builders here. And these two gray-haired guys are the senior house builders. And what they're doing is they're raising the center poles that would hold the ridge pole. This is all temporary scaffolding here to hold everything in place. The foundation has not yet been built. So they construct the middle part first, the itu. And what's very interesting here is that the cross pieces here are just temporary to give it its shape. And later they'll add the formal pieces that are not connected to the center post, but just serve the same purpose that these do of giving this shape. And you notice the very first thing they want to do is thatch this. Now, in Margaret Mead's Social Organization of Manua, which is a Bishop Museum bulletin, she describes the traditional creation of heaven. And it involves the creation of a dome of heaven and then levels in that dome. And that Tangaloa is the creator god who does this, and that there's a Tangaloa on each level. And each level is considered a heaven. So he would be Tangaloa Langi, the Tangaloa of heaven on each of those levels. The more levels, the more prestige, as was also the case in Nias. And she says that the biggest one that could be done, and I've never seen a house with it, but it would be 9 or 11. And that was the same rule in Nias, by the way. The number of levels, which I'll show you in a moment, would correspond to that. So all of this is scaffolding, this is temporary, they'll be taken out, is to build the center section first, and here everything is lashed. Now that's the difference between Polynesia and tribal Southeast Asia. Tribal Southeast Asia, things are held together by socketing. All different kinds of sockets, very elaborate ones. And in Polynesia, it's all lashing is what holds things together. Here you see they're making a thatch out of sugarcane leaf, and it would look like that. And you can see here in this old photograph from German times in Samoa, you can see that some of the more formal pieces have been put in, and they thatched the itu, the middle part first. And notice that these posts over here are temporary. So this is all hanging on these posts in the middle. Here's a very large one, and you can see somebody standing up there. I wouldn't dare do this. And this one, the one rounded end was already done, and they're working on the others. And to us, it looks like these are bent pieces, but they're not. They're laid out. They're sections of breadfruit wood, and they're laid out in sectors that are fitted together but not held together by that socket. They're just sort of aligned that way, and then this would be wrapped around with cordage to keep it together. And these curved parts would hang on the itu. You can see how it's done. It just hangs there so that the building could stand without the peripheral posts, which are there just to hold the backs of the people who take part in the phono or the oratory. I searched all over to see if Peter Bach, who did a very great book for the Bishop Museum, bulletin number 75, The Material Culture of Samoa, and he describes house building there, doesn't illustrate it with photographs, and sadly, we only have a description as this very key point. but no photograph. I looked in the Bishop Museum everywhere. He says a complete house that has yet to have a high platform added is a curious sight. It hangs in the air and emphasizes the peculiarity of the Samoan house construction, the somewhat unique principle of hanging the frame from the ridgepole. Exactly as I described it, it's an umbrella structure. And the sequence of this construction follows very closely the sequence of creation. That the phono, or the oratory in Samoa, is very formal if you've ever witnessed it. It involves the distribution of ava, a mildly intoxicating drink. And the sequence of that distribution is a reflection of the social hierarchy. And one of the things that Margaret Mead points out is that every phono is an incomplete version of the great phono that was held in the sky as each of the levels of heaven were created. So that really makes this a cosmic structure. Now, of course, it's not the same as the cosmic structure in Nias, but they're thinking the same way about oratory. The last part is done by women. Now, the whole construction up until now is male, and women do the foundation. So they carry in those heavy stones and they put them in and build it up to the posts around the edge. And that completes the house. And it suggests a duality between the dome on top and the earthly foundation that's on the bottom. In the house, the Ava ceremony is part of the council that would be held there, and the Ava bowl would look something like this. This is a more modern one. By that I mean it's 50, 60 years old, but you could see that it's made to be in this house. This is an older one, and this would be a good museum example. The cord that comes over here, it would have extended to the main chief, who sits in a special post in the oratory. So, and the form of the Ava bowl, Tanoa Ava, is an inverted form of the house itself. So it's a visual complement to that. These are two diagrams. One of them is from Bradshaw, and the other one, I'm not sure where I got it, but they show the same principle, just two different diagrams. The sea is always over here, and the mountains are on this side. So this Uta or Tua is towards the mountains, Luma and Kai towards the sea. The E2 is the middle part. These are the supporting pillars. So all of that's supported on these things here. And both diagrams indicate that the mountainside is where the Ava bowl would be. The curved parts, and this is true in other parts of Polynesia, curved forms tend to be associated with royalty. So crisscross and checkerboard patterns tend to be commoners. So the titled people are allowed to sit at their posts over here in the rounded part. People who sit here are usually too young to have yet taken their full titles. And so that's a difference. The center of the curve on one side of it is male, and that's the most honored seat. You can see this one has a throne of mats. The other side is considered female. The person is not. That would be an invited chief who would be there. And the Ava is distributed. The line from the Ava bowl goes here. But it goes there, then it goes there, then it goes to different parts. The section over here is called a Pepe, is where the talking chief is. This is a person who speaks for the chief. He is a lower ranking individual and usually has a little coarser personality than the chief. The chief is very refined and dignified. The talking chief could be a little different. But as part of the oratory that would go on in here, he would be conducting quite a bit of that. This is a photograph of the preparation of Ava. Now this is traditional in a certain way, but not completely. She would be dressed very differently, and I'll show you what she would look like. She is the taupo, she would be the taupo, or the firstborn daughter of the high chief. Next to her is her brother, who is a manaya, and back here is another one. She makes the ava, strains it in the bowl, and would just throw this back, and he would catch it, and he would provide her with more ava to put into the bowl here. Traditionally, she would look like this. This one comes from Kramer, the Samoa Islands, which, by the way, has been translated from German to English. And you could see here this head ornament that she's wearing. Now, men can wear this also, but more often we find the taupo is the one who wears it. It's called the tuinga, and you can see it here. That's reddish human hair, which is special. The same thing is true, interestingly, in Hawaiian female images. They have reddish hair, called ehu. And this is mother of pearl here. In this photograph, she's using mirrors because it should have a reflecting quality, but this is older over here. So she would be preparing the ava. The talking chief, which you can see here, holds what's called a fly whisk, what we call a fly whisk, they call it a fue. And you can see his is rather coarse, and this is a matai, this is a high chief. And notice how dignified he looks, and not quite the same, a little cruder for the talking chief. And he's holding his fly whisk right here, which is delicate. And that's kind of interesting. It kind of reminds me of shadow puppets in Indonesia. The refined small figures are the power figures, and the bigger ones, the cross ones, are different. They're not as really powerful, and he has that aspect to him. This is a museum example, but you can see this is a fue for a matai, and this would be for a talking chief, tula fale. So how do these two systems relate? Well, basically, they express opposition in different ways, but they both express opposition. In the Nias example, it's the center versus the periphery. But then there's also front and back, which is significant. So this would be the upper world, this is the underworld. And by the way, the Nias underworld is not an evil thing. It's a source of fertility, it's the earth. The heavens are represented as the upper world. So it's it shouldn't be confused with heaven and hell in Judeo-Christian tradition. In the fale tele, we have a mountain and a sea. We have the untitled people in the straight part. We have the titled people on the curved parts. One is male, one is female. It's a set of oppositions as well that is necessary for the council to happen. Now, I couldn't find anywhere a diagram of the Samoan cosmos, but it's kind of similar in other parts of Polynesia. So this one comes from the Cook Islands, Mangaya, and you can see there's numbered levels to the upper world. Then there's Mangaya, or the earth, and then underworlds down here. That is also typical of tribal Indonesia and Nias in particular. But these levels here, non-supporting levels, are corresponding to those levels in the upper world by Tangaloalangi, created by Tangaloalangi. In South Nias, we see those levels in the chief's house. And here's a diagram of it. And the chief's house, by the way, is called Omo Sebua, which means the big house. And fale tele means the big house. And you can see that there are levels up here. And actually, the first level is called the navel level. Then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Up here, they would put skulls to Loalani. And under here would be the skulls to La Toredano. And over here, you can see this, Tangaloalangi. It occurred to me that really, if you take off Tanga, it's Loalangi. It's so strangely similar. We wouldn't expect it to be the same after all this time and distance and all of that. But there's something very traditional, very original about that concept. Both houses are open to the public. Now, the fale tele has rolled up mats for when it's be used as a guest house. They would get privacy by doing that. All traditional houses in Samoa are built that way. But when it's functioning as a council house, it would be open. And in Nias, that's the only open house. All the others have walls and privacy. So it's truly a public house. And of course, this is on pillars and this is on stone foundation. I should mention that you may notice that there are very thick pillars and oblique pillars over here. Nias gets terrible earthquakes. The big earthquake that did the tsunami in Southeast Asia originated on an island just to the north of Nias, Simalu. And it shook Nias quite a bit. And an interesting consequence, I could have put a picture of this, is all of the houses built according to Western standards, not traditional Nias houses, collapsed during that big earthquake. And the Nias houses are all still standing. So they knew why they did that. It's really built that way. And the socketing system gets tighter when you shake it rather than coming apart. So it's really an ingenious method that they used. In Samoa, there is even an oblong-shaped house that serves the same purpose, the fale afolao. It also is a council house. It has a rectangular crib structure that holds the middle part, which is much longer here. But essentially, these are the rounded parts, and the head chiefs would be at the end. It functions basically the same way. The feasting is done, and the division of the pig is a big thing. This one is a photograph I took during a wedding where they were dividing the pig. And dividing the pig consists of 3 people for each part of the pig. One to observe that it's done correctly, and the others to divide it into equal opposing parts, because opposition is very important in the society. By the way, this stone over here is the navel stone of the village and has a symbol of the sun on it. And of course, this is Sun Mountain. So there's a cosmic symbol there. The chief's house is over here, and they're dividing up everything. Here, it's less clear how they're dividing things, but we do have a diagram. This one is done by Brad Shaw, showing who in taking part in this gets what part of the pig. So the pig is symbolic. It's not cuisine. You don't necessarily get the part of the pig that you like to eat. You want the part of the pig that it gives you prestige or your proper position within society. So he has it worked out here that way. In Nias, this is my own scribble from my notebook. But there is something here, Babi Falisa. The pig is first divided in 2, making 2 whole pigs, in other words, complete sets. The front of the pig in Nias goes to the siulu, to the head of the upper class. The Se'ila gets the loins of the pig back here. So there's that opposition. The middle part is for families and male part and female part, right and left. So the division goes this way. And people await when there's the division of the pig going on. People are waiting very anxiously to get their right part of the pig. And it may be just a tiny piece like that, but it has to be the right part to express their position in society. And while this was going on, I observed that some people came up all red-faced and angry because they haven't received their part yet. And they'd always had to be reassured, we have it for you, here it is. You know, it's very, it's an emotional thing because people can lose face over this. If you forget them or they don't get their part, that's a high insult. Now, backing up a little bit to just this whole question of what is the connection of Southeast Asia, tribal Southeast Asia, to the Pacific. For one thing, the division itself is really colonial. I mean, there is no reason to draw a line in the middle of New Guinea and say that's Southeast Asia, that's Indonesia. These tribal people really do relate across. You see this in language, and I'm not a linguistic specialist, but it's very easy to see it in the counting system. Here's counting in Nias, 1 through 10. Here in Samoan, and this is Taiwan. I wish I had time to discuss the role of Taiwan. It's a little bit strange, but actually Nias and Samoa is closer than it is to Taiwan. But essentially one is different, but you can see all of the others are pretty much related. And there are many other words. Loalani, name of the high god, means outstretched heaven. Tangaloa, a outstretched part as well. Langi is the same as heaven in Samoan. And I could put other Polynesian languages here. Hawaiian works perfectly well with this. So it's kind of interesting. And that whole connection dealing with archaeology and linguistics and genetics is interesting to follow up. But remember that language can travel without genes. I mean, Nias is, if I trace my ancestry, it's not my language. English is not my language. So, you know, people can speak a language without being genetically connected, but there are genetic connections as well. So what has happened over time? And here's a photograph I took on Tutuila, and you can see a fale tele here, and it's got a tin roof. That's really common in these situations, very hard to maintain thatch roofs. So if you put a tin roof, it'll last much longer. So that has happened here. When I was in Nias in 1974, they were having meetings inside the Bale to discuss how they're going to reconstruct the Bale. And they did reconstruct it, and they actually did it 2 times. The final thing looks like this. This roof with very special kind of metal thatch on it is the product of architects coming from Vienna who came and decided to assist them in making, preserving their architecture by making more durable roofs that are nicer than the corrugated steel that they would normally use. But there's something else that has happened here. It's still an open house, but these entrances, which were on the side before, now there's some in the front as well, and there's a stairway. And women can go into the house now. It is not built the same way. These things over here called Sikoli beams, they come up like that. And this one curls around. It's a different design. I haven't been in the reconstructed version, but I imagine the essentials are still there, although perhaps with fresh wood. But there definitely are changes. I would have liked them to reconstruct it as it was, with just fresh things, but time changes and there's very little we can do about that. So here you see, with the best of intentions, the new roof just doesn't feel like the old one. It's just not quite the same. So there you have it. I've gone for almost an hour. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to deal with that.
Thanks, Jerome. That's a very fascinating talk. One of the things that I found in my travels in some of the Indonesian islands was that there was a great deal of architecture related to funerary arrangements. Some of it was very elaborate, some of the finest carvings and so on. And the mausoleums, obviously represented an enormous proportion of the energy of the communities that had created them. In these two places, Nias and Samoa, there seems to be a lot less focus on mortuary activities than. Do you have? Oh, the other thing, very quickly, is you mentioned one of your photographs was taken at the opening of a church, and one of the
Yeah.
interesting things about the mausoleum um, that we saw in a couple of Indonesian islands were that there were, in those cases as well, Christian overlays over the animistic. I mean, do you have any comments on that in relation to Nias and Samoa?
There, I didn't visit the graves in Samoa, and I don't know of any really special thing that's done there about that. There's very little written on it. But in Nias, behind the chief's house, is an area for royal burials. Now it's kind of obscured by a lot of house construction back there. But the way that they did it is they carved a coffin which has a Lasara dragon. It's a monster dragon on it, and the coffin itself is described as a boat to carry the person off to the land of the dead. And it's the custom in tribal Indonesia, in many places, to not bury the dead, but put them on posts above the ground. And the tradition in South Nias was to make a roof construction over the coffin on pillars, and then the coffin would be there with a dragon head on top of it. When they became Christian, they made the same type of coffin, but since they buried it, they made a very long neck on the dragon, so you could bury the coffin and still have the Lasara dragon on it. The Lasara is the royal protector. That's also another name for the chief's house. They call it Lasara. It's the only house that could have a royal protector on it. But it's interesting that they did that in a time when it was very Christian. The last ruler was actually buried in a non-traditional coffin. His coffin was traditional, but the house around it was made out of corrugated steel. And the last person that I worked with redid that in the traditional sense. He put it on posts. He took off all the corrugated steel and built the structure over it that you could see in early drawings from Nias. So he knew it, still knew how to do it.
Okay. Thanks, Jerome, very much. There don't seem to be any other questions, so I think we'll draw stumps, as they say now. And I don't think there's any means of giving you a round of applause in this system or expressing our appreciation. But thanks very much for that, Jerome. And I believe you promised to do another one for us in the future at some stage. And I'm very much looking forward to that. So to everybody, thanks again, Jerome. Thank you to all of you who have come to this.
Thank you.
Thank you.